Well, mixed results from our question, do you think the occupiers are bringing about lasting change? So the conversation continues. You can reach us on the website. But we'd like to go to the studio audience now. We were given the challenge that your tax dollars are actually part of God's way of helping us share. David, you've got a comment about what the...
I've got a question really to ask back to you, and that is the question, what would Jesus do, an appropriate question to ask? This context. Back in the 60s and 70s, Christian liberation theologians would have loved to have put an AK in Jesus' hand. Today, I suspect that Christ could be considered a Marxist. My question is that, is this really an appropriate question? What would Jesus do? Are we asking Christ to make a political statement? What I think he would actually ask is, leaders, lead. You make the example.
Well, and that is true because Jesus did not take any political stands. But what I guess the impression that we're trying to live under is that we're still challenged to follow the teachings of Jesus. And your point about leading with the principles of Jesus is different than being political with the thoughts of Jesus. Our next guest says there is no economic recovery without a moral recovery. Jim Wallis writes about that in his new book, Rediscovering Values. He is the president of Sojourners. Jim Wallis has a long history of being a controversial activist on the economy, and he joins us from Washington. Thank you for joining us, Jim.
It's great to be back with you again.
All right, listen, occupiers have got us talking all around North America. You've been to Washington, I've been to Toronto. What's your assessment of the Occupy movement?
Well, when I reached out to Occupy Wall Street and then began seeing them all over the country, folks said, you shouldn't endorse them. And they don't even endorse each other. I was embracing them and engaging them, which I think we need to do. They're creating space for a new conversation about economic fairness, about what I call the uneconomy. It's unfair, unsustainable, unstable, and making lots of people unhappy, the uneconomy. So that's what they're doing, and it's a good conversation.
Okay, you write at length about changing the values conversation all around our whole money paradigm. Your book, Rediscovering Values. Jim, you write that we have made a shift, a profound shift, and that is that our identity is that we are no longer citizens, we are consumers. Tell us how this happened.
Well, it's clear now that wealth doesn't trickle down, but bad values do. So here are the new maxims that have trickled down to us. Greed is good, it's all about me, and I want it now. Those are deeply embedded in the culture. And in contrast to those, I want to raise up some new old virtues like enough is enough. We're in this together. And I love the Native American notion that you evaluate decisions today by their impact on the seventh generation out. That would change our thinking and our practice.
Okay, help us recognize how those harmful maxims have filtered down to us.
Well, I think when we had this terrible crisis, right away we could see it wasn't just an economic crisis or a financial one, but a moral crisis as well. It's short-termism, seeing things in the very, very short term and not seeing the longer-term consequences of our behavior. So there's too much arguments about if it's going to make us money, particularly in the quarterly profit and loss statement, that's enough. It's not enough. There are other stakeholders beyond shareholders. There are workers and consumers and the environment and even the next generations out.
Okay, and we have increased our own appetite for debt, what we'll carry as consumers. You between big business, my own consumption, you write we've got an attitude out there that the economy is all-powerful, all-knowing, all-present. It replaced our moral framework?
Well, it's attributes we normally associate with God. All-powerful, all-knowing, all-present. And this we can't question. There are these sort of prophets of the market, this sinless market, and they tell us what's possible, and we don't question these sages. And so I think, pastors tell me they've taken surveys of their congregations, and the average credit card debt, this is not house payments or mortgages or car payments, but credit card debt is like $35,000 average in these congregations. We are addicted. We are in bondage. We are in shackles. And the pastors use words like that in talking to me about their own congregants.
All right, you do charge in your book, Rediscovering Values, that across the board, whether it's the marketplace, the economy, what I buy, we need to put a rightful worship of Jesus Christ back into our mindset. Explain that.
Well, you know, for us, this is about idolatry. It's about things taking the place of God. Things that are useful or even needful, when they become too important, when they become all important, they become sources of worship for us. Meaning, I mean, Jesus said, you cannot serve God and mammon, God and money. He didn't say negotiate a deal. He said you can't serve God and mammon. And we've been trying to do that for a long time. And as my pastor said last Sunday, you know, most of our of the American dream we buy with MasterCard. On Sunday, we hear about the Christian dream just to round us out a bit. And that's the problem.
What about all of those who say, I don't even care about putting God in the picture. I just will serve money because it's too all-pervasive. I can't get away from it.
Well, that's an addiction. That's our captivity. And I don't think, like the young kids say in the Occupy movement, it isn't making people happy. I mean, advertising says, be anxious all the time. Be worried. You're not enough. You're not good enough. You don't have enough. You are not to be satisfied. Jesus says, be anxious for nothing. He says, trust in God. We don't need all this stuff. So advertising and the Sermon on the Mount are just in complete conflict there. So who are we listening to? Who is shaping our lives? Is it what we learn in Sunday school or in church, or what advertising forces us to be 24/7? My kids, that television assault on them. I just want to stand in front of that sometimes and say, no, 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 don't listen. This is all a lie. You don't need this stuff to be a good human being.
All right, Jim Wallis, thank you very much.
Great to be with you again.
All right, and we are so glad that Jim Wallis is giving everyone in our studio audience a free copy of this book we've been interviewing on, Rediscovering Values, A Guide for Economic and Moral Recovery. And for those of you at home, we will select 5 random friends out of our viewer feedback to also get a copy of Jim's book. So write in with your opinions. Well, when we return, occupying some spiritual space on the economy, that's next.